in.
Hello.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm David, and we're here to talk about almost the finale of Big Brother.
We are down to our final 3.
Yes.
It was a real quick week.
And
Fast forward.
2 eliminations this week, which started on Tuesday, a pre-taped elimination.
Oh, it was like no downtime at all
I know,
in Big
yeah.
Brother.
Yeah.
Really just like go, go, go.
Yeah.
We said bye-bye to Victor.
For
We
the third
all knew
time.
it was coming.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I think America really fell in love with him.
Yeah.
He was unevictable, but then he at the end was. And
yeah.
even the jury house footage, they did not want to see Victor
No,
walk in.
and Derek, I was surprised that Derek came on and said that Victor was his pick to win.
Oh, yeah.
Even though, it looked like he was going to be going home, Derek really liked Victor.
Yeah.
So he was like a fan favorite for sure, but they got him out finally.
Let's all vote for him for America's favorite house guest.
Yes.
I feel like he deserves
Yeah,
it.
he should, yes.
I mean, I also would have voted for Paul, but Paul might be in the final
Yeah.
too. So give it to Victor.
Yeah, come on, give that guy some money.
So we said bye-bye to Victor, and then we immediately saw an HOH.
Yes, Paul won.
Paul!
It came down to Paul and Nicole, and it was a tiebreaker, very close, very tense. Paul won, and he was like overjoyed
crying.
because he knew that he had to win that.
Yeah, he did. And he did.
Yes.
Like, he just lost his duo.
Yeah.
And he knew he had to win or he was in danger.
Yep.
And he pulled it out.
Yeah, I think
And
he
I think
knew.
the whole world was like, yay.
I was happy because as much as I have been a fan of Nicole for a long time,
Yeah.
it just would have been boring if
Yeah.
Nicole had won and like it just, things go the way they
Right.
want them to, and then Corey and Nicole are in the final two.
This
and
is the more exciting way to go about
Exactly,
it.
this is more drama.
Yes, and he did exactly what we all hoped he would do. He put Nicole and Corey up on the block.
Split up that duo.
Yes.
As we all know, at this point in the competition, when it's the final 4, the only thing that matters is the veto competition because the veto winner determines who casts the single vote to evict.
Yes.
And Paul wins the veto.
Yes.
Back-to-back wins.
He's on a roll.
Yes.
Now that competition was a little closer with Corey.
Yes.
And that got a little tense.
Little
I enjoyed
heated.
watching that.
That was. And I was glad, again, just glad to see Corey finally awake and
Yeah.
competing and
I mean,
really
the fact
challenging
that he
people.
knew those days, I was actually very surprised
I
about
was
that.
too,
I
yeah.
mean, the guy has over and over again said he didn't like to study.
Yeah.
He didn't want to study, he didn't care.
Who cares? Yeah. So it was very close again between the two of them. Paul pulls it out, so Paul, of course, keeps the nominations the same. James gets to cast the single vote to evict.
And James's strategy on this was to do whatever Paul wanted him
Yeah.
to do as a thank you because obviously he's the only replacement nominee.
Yeah.
And obviously he would have been voted out
Yep.
between a Nicori vote.
Mhm.
So his way of thanking Paul and showing his alliance or loyalty to Paul
Yeah.
is to say, who do you want out? Paul says Corey. James agrees it should be Corey. They apparently both find Corey to be a physical threat.
Yep.
So that was good enough for them.
Corey was still a little bit surprised when he
I'm not sure
was
why
evicted.
he was so
It
surprised.
seemed pretty clear to everyone else that that's what was going to happen.
He literally sat down with Paul and Paul was like,
Yeah, it's your time. But he's gone. And of course Nicole is very sad and she's like, oh, the person that I've been spending the most time with is gone. It feels so bad. And James and Paul are like, yeah, we know. You voted out the other half of our duos.
yeah. It's all a little payback, but that's the game of Big Brother.
Exactly.
And that's why it's fun to watch.
Yes. So our final 3, we have Paul and 2 vets, James and Nicole. I'm
Interesting, you guys.
shocked that
Very interesting.
Paul is the best player of all of the newbies this
Yeah.
season, based
And
on how he started.
do we remember that most of the season, those vets were the targets?
Yeah.
So even though we can complain about both James and Nicole's gameplay at times,
Yes.
they survived being threats.
They're still here.
Yeah.
Final 3.
That does say something.
It sure does. So now we have spoilers, right?
Right, so now that we have our final 3, we go through the 3 steps to the final HOH.
Right.
That's how this is played. Spoiler is they've played round 1.
Mm-hmm.
It was an endurance physical competition.
Yep.
And
Paul won.
Paul pulled it out.
Third
You guys, he
win in
is
a row.
On a roll.
Yes. He is trying to win his way through to final 2.
He's gonna be hard to beat.
Yeah, and apparently that one was also pretty competitive, I think, between Paul and James. And
Yeah.
James ended up being really upset with himself that he didn't win that, and he thought he could beat Paul.
Yeah, Nicole actually thought he was throwing it. So it might not have looked as close.
Sure.
But James was expressing his frustrations in a cam talk on the feeds.
Mhm.
And he was very disappointed in himself. So he didn't throw it.
Right.
But of course, he's thrown so many that everyone questions.
Exactly. And speaking of throwing, now the conversation is that James and Nicole are going to be competing in the next round, and James is talking about throwing it to Nicole because he thinks Nicole...
Well, here's the thing. James and Nicole obviously have some sort of connection and loyalty. There's been a rumor the whole season that they had a preseason alliance set up. I don't buy it at all, but whatever. Who knows?
Yeah.
They have definitely had each other's backs for the most part, even though Nicole is a snake and she has stabbed people in the back.
Yeah.
But not personally, directly to James.
Right.
They definitely talk like they would bring each other to the final two.
Yes.
So at this point, when James knows more than likely he's not going to beat her in a mental comp or puzzle, he can act like, I'll just throw it to you.
Sure, because I know you're going to bring me. This is my loyalty to you. I'm going to throw you this comp.
So I don't know if he really means I'm going to throw it to you, or if it's more like, I'm not going to do well in this one.
You're going to beat me.
Let me make you think that I'm throwing it to you.
Yes. And at this point, it looks like both Paul and James would bring Nicole to final two if they won final HOH, and it's looking like Nicole would bring James, right?
Yeah, I mean, Paul is swearing up and down about his loyalty to Nicole and how he doesn't like James's gameplay this season, and he wouldn't want to sit next to James up in the final two, which is an interesting philosophy or strategy on final two.
Yeah.
But he is just like expressing his undying love to Nicole. We're doing this final two. And Nicole is like,
yeah, of course.
But in reality, she has expressed that it would be dumb to sit next to Paul because he's smart. He's won competition. Yeah, like I agree too.
Yeah.
And in a minute, let's talk about what we think a final two would actually end up, who would win.
Right.
But she has said, and she said this to Corey before Corey left, of like, what, should I really take Paul? And he was like, no way, you should take James.
Yeah.
Which is the smartest thing Corey's said all season.
Yeah. Seems like a no-brainer. So they've still got the 2 rounds left to play for the final HOH, but of course whoever wins the final HOH picks who they want to bring to final 2. So now we can talk about scenarios.
Here's some scenarios. Let's say Paul, since he's on a roll, wins it out, and he chooses to take Nicole. Who does the jury vote for?
I don't know. Here's the thing. I think, I'm going to speculate
That's the toughest one.
I think it is. And I'm going to speculate on why both James and Paul want to bring Nicole, because that's interesting to me. Because to me, Nicole has been playing a really smart game, especially towards the end.
Yeah.
And winning and running the house and making decisions and all this stuff.
Right.
But I think she talks up a lot to both James and Paul that everyone in the jury hates her.
Yes.
So I think she sort of convinced them both that she's not a threat in the final 2. The jury won't vote for her. But I think there are a lot of people who, even though they were like burned by Nicole, I think they have sort of earned a lot of respect for her, watching her send person after person to the jury house.
Yeah, we've kind of seen that with Day. Last week, she was like, oh, man, Nicole, I gotta give her some props. And then this week, we saw her go, oh my gosh, Nicole, I'm gonna end up giving her the money.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you see that change in Day, then you see it's possible.
Yeah, and Day's a very vocal person in the jury house. Like, she might have a lot of sway and like get people thinking like she does. You know, you never know. But that is the toughest matchup. I think it might be like a 5-4 situation for who would win and who would lose.
And that's a good point to why Paul won't take James, is because Paul did stir some crap up, and so he does have enemies in the jury house. And he knows that Nicole has enemies in the jury house. Whereas James doesn't, he didn't burn really anybody.
No,
and everybody enjoys James. So if you are sitting next to James, even though you can't say he did much in the game, if you have ticked off jurors, maybe they vote that way.
True.
I just don't think that they will. If Paul is sitting next to Nicole, I think it goes to Paul.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be close, like you said.
Because Corey's a guaranteed vote for Nicole, of course.
Yes, and Victor is a guaranteed to Paul.
Yeah, so then it
But I also feel like Michelle and Natalie could probably sway more towards Paul than Nicole.
For sure, yes.
And if it's Paul sitting there, maybe Day doesn't feel like she has to give it to Nicole.
Yeah, right? You know,
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that one might go to Paul.
So if Nicole wins out and she brings James, I feel like Nicole has it.
I think Nicole wins, because I think even though she has enemies in that jury house for sure, specifically like Big Meech, I think that there's no way you can say James outplayed Nicole.
Right. I mean, I think it's from her perspective, it makes sense. They're both vets, so you can't use that against anybody. They both were in a showmance. You can't use that against either one of them. And then she can just say, I won this many competitions.
Yeah. You know, I orchestrated this eviction and this eviction. Like,
I helped Corey get this person out. You know, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If people are ticked off enough and they just want to give it to James, maybe, but I feel like she wins it that way.
I agree. And then if it's James and Paul, I think Paul wins, for sure.
So overall, I think we think Paul deserves it.
Yeah.
Is what it sounds like.
Yes.
But Nicole deserves it if she's not next to Paul.
Right, yeah. Basically, Nicole, I think, needs to win this final HOH and bring James if she has any hope of winning.
Yeah.
Because if Paul brings her, I think he will beat her.
Right. Who do you want to win, though?
Wow, I've just always loved, I have a soft spot in my heart for Nicole.
Really?
I kind of want her to win, and you know, I am a feminist, like I would love to see a woman win. It's been a long time since a woman has won this game.
And a woman has never won next to a guy.
Yeah, which I think would be great if that happened.
I agree with everything you're saying, except I don't want Nicole to win.
But I will say, even though I want her to win, I don't know that I could say she's played a better game than Paul, because I think Paul has played a really great physical comp game and an amazing social game. Yeah. And he survived the block like 6 times.
Paul really ticked me off when he called Michelle the C word.
Yes.
You really lost me for a minute there, but I've come back around. And I think that he deserves to win.
Yeah, I think he played the best game.
But if it's Nicole and James, I would be very happy for Nicole to win because she did play hard. But I want Paul to win.
I want Nicole. So I think one of us will be happy.
Yeah. It's probably going to be one of those.
Yeah.
What do you guys want? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. And click subscribe because we'll be back to cover the finale.
The finale is next week, y'all. We'll see you then. Bye.